becoming an account executive after being an SDR, I think is one of the most like rewarding things a salesperson can do. Right now, your big focus you're focusing on right now, Nirvana, is helping create that pathway to that process. Walk us through why that's such an important thing for you. And I'd love to kind of know kind of what goes in those steps.
hmm Well, it's so important to me because I love my career in sales and I've gained so much out of it just for myself that it feels really good to be able to help other people have that as well. And I think back in the day, there used to be this dream that was sold where it was like you cut your teeth as an SDR or BDR for 12 months and then you get to be an AE, and things have changed. And I don't know exactly what's driving that change. Maybe there are fewer AE jobs. We need people to sit in seat as SDRs and BDRs a little longer than we used to. But for several companies I worked at where I was both an AE and a manager, they were selling to enterprises. And for SDRs, BDRs, it's like you become an SDR, BDR, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, right? And there's no way to get into the AE track because all your AEs are super tenured. So how do you bridge that gap, right? That was a problem that I witnessed firsthand and something that was passionate about solving. And then
Okay.
this opportunity at Salonis, where I'm at right now, came about. And so I'm really excited to be doing this work every single day right now.
It's interesting when you and I were getting to know each other before we hit the record button, and you mentioned that's kind of like your focus right now. I mean, that's just like you could probably see the excitement across my face because, I deal with, corporations, businesses, sales organizations every day that is so adamant the right way to do it, and especially the industry I come from, which is automotive. The right way to do it is to keep recycling the same account executive field dinosaurs that have been in this field and industry for so long. And yes, there's some value in the fact they've got some relationships, but man, there's so little, in my opinion, ability to unlock potential when you do that. I think that I probably have a little bit different of a vision or what I've experienced in organizations over the past 10 years that have that limitation placed on SDRs, but I've also been in a position to kind of dictate the pathway of that. I have
Hmm.
a firm stance, and we're going to define what an SDR is here in a second because a lot of companies define that differently. But
Mhm.
I have a firm stance that an SDR that is nothing more than a cold calling appointment setter, which is what I define an SDR to be, um, they should not be in that role more than 12 months. And if they are, it's not the right role. That you as an organization, if you have SDRs, that should be your springboard to any other role you have in your organization. And that should be the bullpen in which you pull all of your other roles out of. Now, that requires, in my opinion, Nirvana, it requires the ability to develop people. It requires the ability to develop processes. And without that, that's where people, I think, tend to fall back on just hiring a person who's got experience because I can just plug them in. Is that what you've seen? Like the restriction, or what I heard you say is companies have an established sales force and there's just no loss of staff. There's no growth happening. And so there's really stagnation in regards to the roles.
I think it's a combo of things. I
Okay.
think it's like you said, top of funnel, not wanting to hire people once you've trained them to backfill people when they're ready to grow, right? Like, so people are ready to grow, but they already know how to do this one job, right? So that's one of the things. It's also not knowing how to train them to enter the field, right? And so, especially when you're selling to enterprise, you do want some of those more experienced sellers because why would you give your most important clients to your most junior sales force, right? Like to your most junior sales talent. So there's got to be something there to reduce the risk. And then I think it's the third part of like wanting to hire people externally for their Rolodex for the people that they know, rather than like promoting somebody internally who's homegrown in your business.
Yeah, I've never understood the organizations that are that avoid the homegrown side. I've never understood it. have you ever worked at an organization that really thrived in that environment, that like really had that as a perk to their employees, the fact that they grow people?
That's a good question. I'm just thinking back on my career, and for me, not really. I mean, just because I have worked primarily at startups too. And I think that both the lack of structure in a startup and all of the instability there combined with sales and tech sales in particular makes there be a lot of turnover in sales, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just like there's people coming in and out all the time. And especially lately, I feel like during the pandemic, there were some layoffs that took place at companies, and everybody was like, oh boy, this pandemic's a big deal. But it's almost like it's normalized layoffs and restructuring. And I feel like that is just the norm now in tech, that like companies just like lay people off and don't hold on to all of those people with that institutional knowledge. And when you couple that with somebody who's more junior and doesn't have the experience to hold on, then it's like, all right, um, you're losing people that could be growing within your organization.
Yeah, I've seen. It's not that I disagree with you. I agree with you totally, but I would probably look at it with a different diagnosis in regards to where the problem came from. I saw the pandemic. I see a lot of employees looked at it as an opportunity for them to leave the organizations that they were at. And then
Uh-huh.
I think that the companies then had a significantly less loyal team. So then they started thinking of their staff a lot more transactionally. And I think that it was just kind of like everybody started thinking about work in a transactional capacity instead of like the loyalty that can go there. Now, I also will always put that back on the leadership of the company, in how you have set up your structure of the foundation of the company. But I would say that the majority of the startup companies that I've worked with or been at should be the place that growth through an SDR should be the most optimal opportunity.
Uh-huh.
But what you're saying is you've not seen that happen as much in those environments.
Yeah, I haven't, but I've also sold to enterprise. So I think that like if you're selling to the SMB or mid-market, it makes the case for, okay, these SDRs, these BDRs, they can grow into this AE role. But when you're selling to enterprise, it's like, oh, okay, like this person's never had a sales call beyond the first couple calls before.
Yeah.
How can I trust that they know what to do? And you know what I mean? So, mhm.
Yeah, well, we were all there at one point. We
Mhm,
all
mhm.
never work with an enterprise customer at one point. We all never did sales at one point. It's I remember like my first job in sales management, one of the hardest things for me to wrap my head around was the willingness to lose a customer to gain 10 more.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I'd be like my first sales job, Nirvana, was like I'd sit inside of a retail store. We'd sell direct TV in Sam's Clubs and Best Buys. And it was like the best and worst thing that ever could happen to me from a sales experience perspective. And it's something that I grew to be really good at.
Mhm.
And there was tens of thousands of sellers in the country that were doing my job, and there were months that I was number one in the country at that role.
Wow.
And so I knew that if you got a customer in front of me, I knew I was going to close that customer at a better rate than anybody else in the country. There was no doubt in my mind about that. But
Yeah.
when I got into a position and this company kind of instilled the philosophy that I do around developing people is everybody at that company started off at the entry level. Everybody started off doing the exact same thing. And the
Mhm.
only way you got to the next level is if you were able to set the pace yourself. And the only
Mhm.
way you got to the next level is if you were able to make people around you better. And you were able to build in a team and have people build around you. And so that challenge of the setting the pace myself was easy. But
Mhm.
then being able to then duplicate myself with teaching other people how to get better was the first big challenge I had. And I could come back and have as many sales as my team is wanted because I would just jump in and close the deal. But where I really learned how to become a good leader is being able to sit in the background, let them fuck it up, and me not get in there and not go save them so that
Mhm.
I had an opportunity to then coach them to close that gap next time. And
Mhm.
I think that in general, that sounds to me like probably the biggest mistake is let a new person who has potential to be an enterprise seller, let them shadow you on calls for 3 months. Let them
Mhm.
take on calls that you then watch. Don't be afraid to lose a customer Because if you're going to lose a customer based off an inexperienced rep, you probably never had them in the first place.
True.
And then don't be afraid to, if you lose a customer, be able to communicate the challenge and then win them back.
Yeah.
But you're saying you don't see that, right?
Not usually. So, one quote that I really love, I forget who said it, is the only reason somebody will ever hire you is if the ROI of hiring you exceeds the risk. I think the same goes for internal roles, right? So when that BDR, SDR is trying to get into that AE role, the ROI on having them there has to exceed the risk. Um, and I agree with you in terms of like they need to shadow and they need to see, but also the part that I agree with you more on is that they need to fail. Like they need a safe place. They need like a sandbox, if you will, like
Sure.
the way that engineers have to just get in there, do it themselves, and really experience. Because salespeople, from what I've seen, are all like kinetic learners for the most part, right?
Right.
Like they learn by doing, and so I mean, and my family's from Guyana in South America, and we have a phrase down there, which is when you don't listen, you feel. And it's usually said to a kid after they make a mistake and they get hurt. It's like, you didn't listen to me. And now you played with fire, you got burned. But it's true. Like, honestly, like if they're not going to hear it unless they feel it. Right.
Yeah, they
So,
gotta do it, like,
and
and
that's how
there's
you,
different learner. There's
yeah.
different people learn different ways,
Right.
um, but yeah, I mean, you gotta be able and willing to do that, and look, at the end of the day, like, I think you gotta know your employee. Like, for me, when I bring on an SDR, and I'm interested to know what you would look for in an SDR, like personality traits.
Uh-huh.
Um, that's part of my sale. Like, why people come and work for me is because I commit to them that,
Uh-huh.
number one, I look for people who have 3 traits. And I'm very clear in my interview process. I'm very direct and to the point because that's the type of coach I am. Is I
Uh-huh.
say I need people who have a student mentality, I need people who are self-aware, and I need people who are thick-skinned. And if you
Uh-huh.
have those 3 attributes, I can train you to be a very successful salesperson. Now, if you're unwilling to learn, if you're not self-aware and you're sensitive, probably not going to work out working for me, because I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. I'm going to coach
Uh-huh.
you and push you in a way that's going to make you uncomfortable. And if you follow my offense, I have a proven record to take people from SDRs to account executives in anywhere from 90 days to 6 months. I have a
Uh-huh.
track record of doing that over dozens of times in corporate landscape. But I hire everybody who comes into work for me in any organization. They all have to start out as an SDR for at least 90 days. I don't
Wow.
care if they were a CRO at a company. Start off as an SDR, prove to me you can go find deals yourself. You're not going to be dependent on leads or marketing or this. You can go get deals yourself. And then when you do that, then I'll give you a chance to do sales discovery. Then I'll give you a chance to present the solution. And then if you do well with that, we can have a conversation of bigger clients and bigger markets and those types of things. Everybody's got to prove that point, and everybody earns it at the same level. I don't care what you did before you work for me. That's what you need to
Uh-huh.
do, work for me. What do you look for when you bring on people, or if you were to look at somebody for an SDR, like what would be the main attributes you look for?
Yeah, love the question. And it's making me wish that I had more of a framework the way that you do. But I think that some of the things that I'm looking for are, like you said somebody who likes to learn. For me, that's growth mindset, right? So fixed mindset is like, I'm the best, I can't get better, or I'm the worst and I'm never going to get better at this, right? It's just this like self-limiting belief. Whereas growth mindset, and every person who's ever worked for me on one of my teams knows what the biggest room in the world is, and that's the room for improvement.
Mm,
So knowing that your ability to get better is up to you, right?
mm,
It's up to the effort that you put in. It's up to your focus, right? And for that, I'm looking for somebody who's willing to be a beginner and willing to make mistakes,
yep.
willing to mess up, right? And usually the questions that I'm asking are like, what's something that new that you're trying to learn right now? And what's the process of that? And what's standing in your way of becoming an expert? Right? So that's one of the big things.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And
Mhm.
by all means, I didn't always have this framework. I developed the framework over time and
Yeah.
experience in those things and learning. There was times where I took on my first major sales organization at a software company in automotive, and I was blowing people out left and right.
Mhm.
I was blowing them out because I was so aggressive with them. But then I had to learn I needed to pre-prepare them for the fact that I need somebody with thick skin. I
Yeah.
need somebody who's ready to go through the equivalency of a sales boot camp. But the thing that has to happen is I have to have that light at the end of the tunnel. I have to have that 90-day, 6-month thing that they actually conceive. For me,
Mhm.
I require anybody I hire, they have to tell me what their why is.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the reality of it is, Nirvana, is that 80% of young people that I ask that question to, they have no idea. They haven't
Mhm.
even
Mhm.
considered it. They don't even know. They're just
Yeah.
looking to trade their time for money. And if sales happens to be an environment and a vehicle for them to do that, they're fine. But one of the things I require them is I say, I like you. I think you have the right traits. I think you could be fantastic. Uh, let's have another conversation in a week, and I want you to come to the table really thoughtfully thinking about what your why is. Because if
Yeah.
you don't have that, then how can I manage you? How can I coach you? How can I develop you? Because I need to know what motivates you. For me, I'm motivated by growth. I'm motivated by competition. And as sad as it is to say, I'm motivated by winning and holding the trophy up at the end of the day. I want to hold the trophy up. Like,
Mhm.
I'm competitive and I want to win. And when I win, I want to hold the trophy up. But I know that about myself. And so I can tell my bosses, create competition for me, create
Mhm.
challenges, and then give me the medal and the trophy at the end. And you're going to have me motivated. Create a
Mhm.
career path for me to grow and or for me to build something for my team to grow. And I'm motivated. But if you're
Yeah.
telling me just go trade your time for money, you can tell me how much money I want to make. That's not ultimately going to make me work harder trading my
Mhm.
time for money. Like the other things are what is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's definitely important to be coin operated, like you say, right? Like you have to care about the money to a certain point to do sales because it's like sales is money, right? It's
For sure.
commerce. But the thing that you're describing, I also absolutely look for, and that's sales desire, right? It's like you have to want to do sales. Like if you don't even, one
Oh,
of my
yeah.
favorite
Oh,
phrases
yeah.
is, if my head doesn't understand it and my heart doesn't feel it, my hands won't do it. Right? So if you don't wanna do sales, you're not gonna do it. You're just, like, not gonna you can you can help somebody have the skill to do something, but not the will, right?
It is interesting, and I'm interested to see from your perspectives. I would
Mm.
guess I don't know how old you are. I'm not gonna tell you how old I'll tell you. I'm 42. I'm almost 43. But I
Okay,
would guess I'm a generation at least ahead of you in my career, okay?
okay.
There was a period, that certain people in my generation would look for certain things in work, in a career, and I think that's shifted.
Mhm.
What do you
Yes.
think the primary thing people are looking for in their career right now? What do you think that it is?
Oh, yeah. Well, so do you mean in terms of talent looking for jobs or, like, employers looking for talent? Because 'Cause I've got a different answer.
Give me both.
Yeah, I'm not that far behind you. I'm older than I look. I'm
Okay.
10 years younger than you.
Okay.
But for companies looking for talent, I think that there was a world and there still is where like, absolutely grit is really important, resilience really important, and like just like being rough around the edges, being resourceful, right? But I feel like with all of the tech that we involve in sales right now, there's almost this shift to like you need somebody who's really going to use discernment and think critically and like know how to write and correct the robots that they are tasked with using, which is interesting. And I think it's a different skill set.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a fun one to watch happen, right? Going from my first job where it was like we were literally dialing on desk phones 120 dials a day and you needed somebody who had the stamina to do that. Whereas now it's like, okay, like who is going to be able to like really understand everything that's going on and like almost like project manage all of these systems, right?
So, I'll tell you a story. This morning,
Mhm.
I was on a, company-wide business call with this marketing company, who's in automotive, who just made the executive decision 2 weeks ago to ultimately shift completely away from digital marketing as a full-service marketing agency. And the
Mhm.
and this is a client that has over 100 clients. They're highly profitable, highly successful, but the founder and the owner of the business indicates that he anticipates that by the next 6 months, by the end of 2026, that the need of having an outsourced marketing agency will be null and void. It'll just be dead. There's no need to
Yeah.
do it with automations and AI. And so he's shifting his business. And one of the exercises he had, all of the team do, is he has like a company-wide business account with ChatGPT. We had to set up our email, our calendar, our HubSpot, our Slack, our Read AI, all of our technology to our ChatGPT, and then create a bunch of ChatGPT communicative automations that communicate with each other, send us a morning agenda, that at the end of every Read AI call, it then transcribes the conversation and creates a follow-up task in HubSpot, and then it does all of these things. I mean, it does everything in an automated capacity. And so I think, to your point, I think that there's a lot of value in all of those things making life easier, but I think that then still
Yeah.
creates an even bigger need for the resilience. I think it still
Right.
creates even bigger need for the grit.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the distincting factors is going to happen in the next 20 years. I mean, I've got a 5-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. The
Wow.
biggest difference between my childhood and theirs is I didn't grow up with cell phones in my hand. I didn't grow up with the internet in my life. I didn't grow up with social media, and I didn't grow up with AI. They're going to have all of that handed to them. Their need to think is not going to be there. Their need to be able to access the things to give them the answers is going to be there at all times. But I think the difference between impressive people and not in 20 years are going to be people who know how to think without the tools and
Yeah.
know how to use the tools, but to know how to think without the tools. I think it's going to be, 70 to 90% of our general population won't know how to critically think without the tools.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I mean, I think about like if you give a calculator to somebody who's not good at math, they're not going to get very far. But if
Right.
you give a calculator to somebody who is like a doctorate in mathematics, like they're going to get exponentially better, right? So and that's kind of like what we're seeing right now. Like folks who have done sales and then have sales tools are like becoming like exponentially better. Whereas like people who haven't done sales yet and they have all these sales tools don't necessarily know how to optimize them.
You know how I'm using AI right now? And I've just
How are
started
you
talking about this.
using
I'm so excited about it. This is the future of my business. This is how I'm going to use AI. And I
Mhm,
believe this is a game-changing thing. So I've managed, I would say, probably over 150 to 250 SDRs in my career. Okay.
mhm, mhm,
One of the biggest challenges of managing that, especially from a remote team where I'm not physically in person, and being able to hear the exchange and at least hear one side of the conversation, much less both sides of the conversation, is the amount of time it takes to QA phone calls.
mhm.
Have you spent any time QAing any phone calls? Okay.
I
Beating,
certainly
right? It's a
yeah,
beating.
I like it.
Okay. You like it. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, how many hours a day can you do it?
Well, I mean, in my previous job,
Mhm.
I would spend at least an hour a day listening to every single recording of a conversation that my team had. And by conversation, I mean over a minute. We were using Orem. And
Okay.
so I would like listen to it faster than like 1x, right? At a certain point, you kind of have a sense of what somebody sounds like on the phone, and you have a little transcript there, so you can like read through. You can skip the parts where they always say the same thing, right? But I I felt like that was my job. It was my job, and I like could identify sales opportunities that maybe they weren't seeing. I could figure out how to objection handle things that maybe they weren't able to do live, or like if somebody said to call me back at this certain point, I would be able to like remind them to like get back on the phone with that person on that date. So for me, it felt like that was the management, right?
So let me ask you this,
Okay,
because this
yeah.
is exactly what I've done.
Yeah.
What if you could take all of that knowledge, that complete inherent knowledge that you have that says, if I listen to that call, I can find the gaps in this process. And you could take all of that knowledge and you could ingest it into the AI and let
Mhm.
AI listen to every single call and provide immediate coaching feedback to your sales reps with all of that knowledge immediately after the call is over.
I think that the key part is all of that knowledge because I think that AI still sometimes can be kind of stupid. Like it's
Of
like
course.
I've seen the AI call coaching before and you're
Yeah.
like, close. You're
Yeah.
like, you kind of are misinterpreting this part, or like, like you want to give this 4 out of 5 stars, I would give it 2 out of 5 stars. You know what I mean? So if it
Mhm.
could do that, great. I would go and like dance in the woods and like knit a sweater or something,
Well, go
like,
dance in the woods, go knit a sweater, because we've created a platform called Call Grade IQ, and I've been able to already ingest my knowledge into it. I have on a daily basis anywhere from 500 to 1,000 calls that my team is doing every single day, and I've
mhm.
got a sales manager who used to manage and listen to all my calls. It's all he would do, QA calls all day, and at this point, one second. At this point, uh, he just QAs the system, and it's a one-to-one coaching compared to how we would listen to it.
Mhm.
So we've got that. We can ingest all of our SDR calls are directly integrated in there. We have it
Mhm.
broken down to, because we do B2B sales, but it's like gatekeeper, then the connection, and then once I get the appointment set, and then how I sell the show. We have a
Mhm.
complete it broken down into being able to hear um like personality, tonality, enthusiasm, salesmanship. It has it listen to all of that and providing feedback. And then we have the ability to ingest any of the any of the account executive calls as well can also be input in there, and we have it broken down under the 5 segments I would grade and analyze an overall sales presentation as well, around rapport building and relationship discovery. Those types of things are all built into that process as well.
That's
So
awesome.
that
Cool.
has been I would say probably on the average week saves me and my sales team, I would say easily 10 to 15 hours a week of calls that
Wow.
we would have listened to in the past that now we don't, and now we can move towards that. We've also built in our complete development system as well. So when we bring somebody in, they can tell us what they want to become, align a time frame, and it builds out certain thresholds they've got to get to from a performance, activity, outcome
Mhm.
perspective that lays that out. And then it's got a coaching program built into it too. So I think AI is a scary thing, but if
Yeah.
used correctly, can be a very great and dangerous thing in a positive way. Um, but I also think there's a lot of people that will look at 3 years down the road and say there will not be a need for salespeople 3 years from now. Where do you fall into that?
I Here's what I think.
Okay.
I think that if we get rid of salespeople and make AI do all the selling, then we'll also get AI to do all the buying. And then these robots are going to be slinging software at each other forever, like ETFs or something. And then, like, what's the point of any of this? Like, it doesn't make any sense without the humans. Like, why would we do that? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I can see what you're saying with that. I could say that for me, I do think that I think depending on what how you define sales, like I said, I've said multiple times, I come from the automotive industry. I think automotive BDCs, which is like an inbound call center, I think those can be replaced by AI like in the next 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
Voice AI is good enough. You can program the conversation, the questions that are happening in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
Though the job of an internal BDC is just to sell an appointment to get somebody to come into the store. And I think that voice AI can do 98% of that already today, not to mention the text-based and email-based AI that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the challenge is being able to sell stuff in person, like selling a car in a dealership. I just think that all it takes, though, is the manufacturers to change the landscape of trust and simplicity for customers. I
Mm-hmm.
always use this analogy, Nirvana, and I always say, like, remember when we were growing up, my mom used to say, don't get in cars with strangers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, due to convenience and
Mm-hmm.
trust, we literally summon strangers to our house to pick
Mm-hmm.
us up, to take us to the airport because
Right.
it's easier, it's cheaper, it's more convenient. So we do that. And I think as soon as AI can be cheaper and more convenient, and the trust is higher, I think that you find more people using that. I think right now we still have a lack of trust with AI as a
Yeah.
general public and consumer, but yeah,
Yeah. Do you think that AI is going to take your job, Matt?
yeah, I do.
Yeah. What are you going to do? What's your backup job?
Figure it out. I'm pretty resilient. I'm pretty resourceful.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that AI will take 90 or 70% of jobs in the next 10 years.
Yeah. But then we'll just have different jobs because we have
Different
to.
jobs, exactly. So like where that grows to, where that evolves to, who knows? But yeah, in regards to what I do right now,
Mhm.
um, I think that the most important thing you can do, and if I'm advising somebody who's like 15 years old, is go learn AI, go learn how
Mhm.
to like use AI to be valuable in your industry. Like that I think is the most important thing you can know.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so let's get back to the SDR to AE process,
Okay,
okay?
let's
Because we
talk
can get
about
down
it.
this rabbit hole. All
Okay,
right,
so
so somebody comes in as SDR. What are some of the steps you're wanting to see them accomplish to be able to become an AE, and kind of what does that timeline look like for you?
well, so at my company right now, they do have to be SDRs for 2 years. So they have 2 years, 4 levels, they're 6 months each.
Okay.
And one of the things that I want to see is I want to see them, of course, hit their number, right? Like you need the data, you need that the proof, the evidence that you are focused and good at your job and you care about your job, right?
Okay.
And have those like basic foundational sales skills. Beyond that, I want to see their sales desire, their genuine interest for this career, and that might be sitting in on some of their AEs calls after the ones that they book for them. Like witnessing the entire sales cycle, asking questions, like really trying to follow their deals and understand like the structure of a deal. And
Okay.
then the last thing I want to be seeing is I want to see them sell themselves. And by that I mean when you're doing something well, like how are you making sure people know about it? Are you just waiting for
Mhm.
your manager to say something? Are you having one-on-ones with potential hiring managers? Are you asking potential hiring managers for their advice, networking with them, getting on their bench so that way when a role opens up, they think of you. They consider you as somebody that could potentially be on their team one day, right?
Mhm.
So those are kind of like the three main things that an SDR BDR should be doing if they want to become an account executive one day at their company.
So when you talk about production, like
Mhm.
define to me an SDR at the company you're at right now, what does
Mhm.
production look like?
So they
Is it
are booking
activity?
meetings.
Is
Yeah,
it outcome, combo?
it's outcome. They have benchmarks, but they are paid out on meetings booked as well as like true opportunities, and that's measured by a certain stage that the opportunity has to progress to, and majority of their comp comes from that.
Okay.
So we do have lots of gates to make sure that the meetings that they're booking are highly qualified. They are outbound, so they're going to require 6x more selling than an inbound opportunity anyway, but like they are hustling,
And it's
right?
B2B, right?
Yeah, B2B.
Okay. So
Mhm.
they're dealing with gatekeepers, they're dealing with a lot of high volume of rejection throughout the day. Um,
Mhm.
what is and I know every company there's a different measure of success, but what does a passing measure look like and what does a top performer look like in this environment?
Good question. I mean, like, I feel like passing, like, we're expecting 100%. We're setting goals realistically, right? And
What
then
I'm saying is what would those goals be? What would the quotas be on a monthly basis?
yeah, good question. I actually am not very tied into the quotas because
Okay.
my program happens after BDR 4. So after
Okay.
the fourth level of BDR, they get to graduate into my program, which
Okay.
is it's another 24 months, 4 levels, 6 months each, but they shed all of their BDR responsibilities and they become an account executive. So
Okay.
yeah,
So in your offense, there's a value of them learning, mastering, and excelling as a BDR, but then there's a 2-year shedding process of now you know it, even though you're really good at it, we don't need you doing it. Let's just focus on the other side.
we do want them to prospect, but prospecting like an AE is fundamentally different than prospecting like a BDR.
Okay.
They're not going to go a mile wide, an inch deep. They're going to go an inch wide, a mile deep.
Mm.
And they're going to work all segments of our business. So they get to work the enterprise segment, but they're going to be riding shotgun with a field AE. So, like you said, there's somebody more senior who's doing their job, and they're supporting them in the deal momentum activities. And then for our smaller inbound deals, they get to work those completely themselves. And with that, they also have a pool of accounts that they can prospect into as well, like about 200 accounts or something like that.
Okay. So you say like they go, I don't remember the exact phrase you use, but like wide but they can go deep too, to where the SDRs are going wider and
Hmm.
not as deep. Um,
Yes.
I've got a fundamental belief, and this might just be applicable to my world, not necessarily all worlds,
Hmm.
but I believe that even when you are an AE, if you are prospecting, you have different hats. And I think one of the biggest mistakes AEs that prospect make is they prospect like AEs, not like BDRs. I believe in the way I teach AEs to prospect, which is you have a prospecting hat on and then you sell the appointment and only the appointment, and then they show up to the appointment, and now I sell like an AE. Now I'm wearing different clothes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether I'm in person with them, like when I was selling DirecTV, we would stand intentionally 10 feet away from the desk
Hmm.
because first thing we would do is we would hook them like a BDR. And then we'd say, hey, let me show you. And I'd turn and burn them. And I can just explain the thought process and velocity on it. But in order for me to start selling them, I would want to get them back to my table, which was replacing them from where we met to now where I'm able to go. And I believe that as an AE, one of the biggest mistakes I see AEs make when prospecting is they prospect like an AE, which they make the mistake of now starting to sell the company, the service, the solution, the problem on a cold call when the customer's not in a position to be sold. Instead of sell the appointment, reset the framework, then sell the product. Do you see that same issue, or is it just a completely different world?
I completely agree, but I kind of see it on both sides. I see both SDRs, SDRs, AEs selling the company, the product, not the appointment, like you said. But I always tell them, I'm like, don't sell, like nobody's going to buy enterprise B2B software on a cold call. Like just get them on the phone, right? Sell the meeting. And I think same goes. So for my program's called the Lunar Program.
Okay.
And so my Lunar AEs, like now they're done selling that first meeting. They have opportunities that they're open, they're actively working. And I'm like, okay, sell the next step, right?
Sure. Yep.
Like, yeah, like your job as an AE is always to continue the conversation.
Correct.
So like sell the next step in the conversation. Like,
Yep.
don't worry about the whole thing. Like that's too, like, don't ask to get married on the first date. It's too much pressure. But like, you can sell the next date and that's cool, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty adamant on that AE side, because one of the things I do when I bring in an SDR, and every founder I talk to is like, "Do me tell them about this and tell them about that." I'm like, "Look, let me tell you something. You tell me whatever you want to tell me, but you don't tell my SDRs anything." They're like, "What?" I'm like, the more they know, the more they talk. The more they talk, the less they sell. Like it is that. So the more they learn, they're going to just say more. And that means they're going to actually produce less. I'm like, there's a natural development that happens when an SDR comes right out of training. They're energetic. So they have natural energy and enthusiasm. They don't know enough to overtalk it, and they stick to the script. And they get production right out the gate. And then what happens is they start do the job for 3 to 4 weeks. They're less excited because they're a little bit more comfortable. So now that natural nervous energy is diminished. So now their enthusiasm isn't as high on the calls. So the customers aren't receiving their enthusiasm at the same rate. Now all of a sudden they've learned a little bit more. So now they're kind of anticipating negatives and changing the script, and they're adding in this and adding in that. Now all of a sudden their production's not high, and they're getting frustrated because they're getting beat down with the nose. And so it's inevitable. I say this in every training, is like there will be a high point, then a diminishment, then a pull back, retrain, and then we're going through the roof.
Ooh,
because you're going to have to learn that process.
Yeah, that's cool. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so with an AE, that's the biggest challenge I have with AEs on the phone is still put your BDR cap on. I know you can sell everything.
Yeah.
I know you're the best seller in the world. Cool. Sell the appointment first.
You know what? I think, where their AE cap can come in handy, and same for the BDRs, SDRs when they get more sophisticated. Social selling, LinkedIn, because that's when you're leaving a paper trail. You're putting a message out that's going to get stamped in somebody's brain and they can think about it, whereas like on a cold call, you're interrupting them. They're like, who are you? What?
I agree with that. I agree that in an email setting, in text-based conversations and social selling, absolutely, there's a value in the type of message you can put out that's going to open up and plant seeds in that regards. When I was saying that, I was referring almost exclusively to the cold call side of it.
Yeah. It is interesting how higher up in the funnel, it feels more science than art. And then lower in the funnel, it's like more art than science, kind of like flips. Yeah.
What have you found is the most difficult part you've seen from successful SDRs making the transition to become a productive AE?
We're still working on that, right? Because my program started in February. And so it's been 3 months, a quarter in. And I think we're still figuring out what a productive AE looks like. One of the things is with getting rid of the BDR responsibilities, it's hard to balance, like, when do I prospect with everything else, right? Like, it's like, oh, now I have all of these like activities that I'm supposed to do with my field AE to drive deal momentum. And I also have my own book of business and my own meetings and my own follow-ups and my own research. And then it's like, okay, yeah, but you also have to book some of your own meetings. And it's like, well, when am I going to find time to do that? Right. So,
Prioritization is definitely challenging in that environment for sure.
and I think in an SDR BDR role, there's so much structure created for you that when you
Yeah.
have to create your own structure, it's suddenly like, it's like the wild, wild west,
Mm.
you know? So,
That's true. I never thought about that. That's something that the organizational side is always something that came very natural to me. And I would say that's probably some of the things I would
mhm,
look at my reps and be like, how did you not follow up with all of your emails in less than 3 minutes? And then how did you not make 60 calls today and close 3 deals? How did you not do that?
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
really good at micromanaging and being able to be on this and respond to 5 text messages at single time, but not everybody can do that. It drives me nuts when you can't, but
Yeah.
um,
And I think it goes back to what we said earlier of like you don't really know until you know. And I think that like you can tell new AEs all the things, like all your best tips. You can write the book for them,
right.
right? And they'll read it, but they won't know until they live the book. Like
Hmm.
until they like it's been amazing seeing aha moments with opportunities that are like stuck in a certain stage for hundreds of days or like, like it's like, oh, like this isn't going anywhere. That aha moment where they're like, oh, I made a critical mistake. I should have implemented the mutual action plan earlier. Or like, I never got past this fake champion. You know what I mean? Like just like them seeing it, even though you're telling them, and then they're like, oh, I see it now. And like that's the beauty of the program.
One of the things that I'm working with my team on, which is understanding the value that the only thing almost as good as a yes is a no, and
Uh-huh.
actually how valuable getting a customer to say, "I'm not interested" is. And I think
Uh-huh.
that's something at young sellers or inexperienced or maybe even unproductive sellers miss that aspect that there's so much value in getting a no. There's so
Uh-huh.
much value in getting somebody out of your follow-up pipeline. There's
Uh-huh.
so much value in the process of elimination and being able to remove them from your headache. That I think that's one of the things that we really worked hard with our team on, which is just understanding you can't sell everybody. You don't need to, and actually getting them to admit it's not a good fit
Uh-huh.
is really valuable. I think the other thing that we work with our team on, which is really, really mastering how to overcome objections, and we've got a very clear, refined system on objection handling.
Yeah.
Um, but um, attacking objections, not avoiding them. And I think
Yeah.
so often salespeople try to avoid objections. Looks like you have something to add to that.
Not attacking, inviting,
Yeah,
inviting
sure.
objections. And I think, like, you're right, that the value is, like, the ability to make somebody feel safe to reject you and to tell you why they wouldn't buy this thing, right? And if not, guess what? You're getting ghosted. Like, they're
Yeah.
not gonna respond, they're not gonna be motivated to work with you. But if you can figure out, like, the true reason, whether it's a personal or business reason that, like, and instead of them just being like, "Yeah, great. Uh-huh," like that is a skill. And that's when you can really tackle an objection handle. You can't objection handle like a brush off, right? Like
Yeah. Why I use the word like attack objections,
yeah.
is because I also am a fundamental belief in that when, let's say, you're pitching the product and you are commonly getting the same objections, you
Mhm.
need to adjust your pitch to understand that you're prompting these objections. So there are certain ways you can attack your pitch to overcome the objection before it actually is addressed, instead of waiting for the customer to address it and
Yeah.
then overcoming it. There's a way that you can avoid it, not because you're scared of it, but because you attacked it before they vocalized it and you overcame it before they had a lot of time to think about it. Because for me, I think of it, the longer an objection's sitting in my customer's head that they can't say out loud, the
Mhm.
longer they're not actually listening to me because they're just thinking of that objection in their head, that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
negative. So either overcoming it or bringing it to the surface so that I can address it is the key.
Yeah, no, totally. Like I feel like we teach sellers to create FUD, but like sometimes they create FUD unintentionally.
Mhm.
Right? It's like you're fudding right now. You're fudding up.
So let me ask you this, and we're going to wrap up here in a second. Nirvana, what you're doing for the organization you work for, is this an internal project, or is this something that you intend to build, create a live process for them, and then maybe have something that you will then take to other organizations to help
Yeah.
them build a similar structure?
So this idea, like I found this opportunity through a recruiter. So the idea came from my manager, Ryan Gold, who's brilliant. He's been with this company for eight years. And when he told me about what he was trying to build with a smaller program, I was like, you guys are saints for doing this because like I've seen this problem so many times. So for me, I came in with the execution skills to like get it done and like run it. So that's what I'm doing right now. As I've built this out with my boss, I have realized that there isn't a playbook for this. Like there's no standardized like system for how to build a program that transitions BDRs to AE. And I think because of that, I do want to continue to evangelize this. I started my career, like held an internship in my university career center, and I started in a business school career center before I moved into sales. So I've always kind of been passionate about careers and sales, and I teach yoga outside of work. So teaching. So this feels like the perfect culmination of everything I like to do. So yeah, I want to keep doing this. I also could like keep doing sales management. You know, I'm going to be flexible because I don't know if AI is coming for this job. So
I hear you.
I have a very versatile skill set, Matt.
When you're invested into people, there's nothing more rewarding than that. I mean, I've accomplished a lot in my personal, professional life where it really changed my motivation was when I had an opportunity to impart my wisdom on other people and to be able to play a part in that. One of the things I wish I would have learned earlier is not to chase money, but to chase relationships and skill sets. I
Oh,
learned that probably too late in life to be able to have the impact I wanted to be able to have, but I'm doing everything I can to make up for it now. I would tell you just keep chasing it. If you focus on people, everything else will come into fruition. One piece of advice I'll give you on our way out, and
oh,
I made this mistake probably up until 2 years ago, and I made this change, and it drastically helped me. Um, Everything that you're building for this organization, create documentation and video capabilities for it. And what I mean by that is I've probably done no less than 100 trainings in a live setting with a small group of people. And about a year and a half ago, I took my whole training program. I created a video documentation of it. I put it into school. It's completely free for anybody who wants to take it and learn from it. So you can do it. Your team can do it. And everything I've ever learned in sales is put in there, and anybody can access it at absolutely no cost. But now when I get hired by a company or a company wants to bring me in, all I have to do is give them access to my training and they get access to that like this. Now, I fundamentally believe that a training program is only as good as the coaching program that then follows it. So that's why we have that there. But I would just suggest as you continue to build out your playbook for this process that you're developing,
oh.
just have as many of it documented so that you don't have to keep repeating yourself as you develop people over people over people.
That's
Nirvana, as we head out, any final words for the audience?
Any final words for the audience? If you're an SDR or BDR out there and you're looking to become an AE, don't give up on your dreams. Keep going. And if you are a founder who is trying to build out your sales team, don't sleep on your entry level talent. Invest in them, develop them, and you will have built a wonderful sales team that is going to pay back in dividends.
Love it. Love it. So everybody who's watching, obviously we'll link all of Nirvana's contact and information directly into the post. We'll be coming out with plenty of short clips and the full episode of this as you guys are watching it. Like, subscribe, share, engage with the content. The more engagement, the better it is for all parties involved. So until next time, guys, see you soon.